What's up? What's up? What's up? Hello, everyone. And if you do decide to join, make sure you say hello. That way I can acknowledge you. So I wanted to watch the video by Sabby Sabs, which is in the thumbnail. And I said, hey, if I'm going to watch it, I'm probably going to have some comments about it and this, that, and the other. And so I said to myself, why not just make a recording? And I was going to do a recording. Then I said, might as well do it live. That way I don't have to do a bunch of editing and all that type of stuff. All right. So thanks to everyone who's going to watch. Make sure you do, if you are watching, make sure that you do hit the like button. Or if you watch it in the future, make sure that you hit the like button. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you don't mind, and you want to buy me some lunch, make sure that you can certainly buy me some lunch at another time. Right. So that's the Cash App and Venmo to buy me some lunch, or you can hit the super sticker if you're here live or whatever. So I really appreciate it. So without further ado, I don't have much warm-up stuff like I usually do, but I may do a show later. But anyway, I don't have a lot of warm-up stuff. So Garrett, what's up, man? Glad to see I got a live cast. Missed the one later, in case I missed the one later. Yeah, I do plan on you sent me some stuff today that I thought was pretty good. It's a little more salacious. We might get some more ladies up in here. You know, people always talk to me about I get a lot of emails about why are you talking about this stuff and this, that, and the other, and you're supposed to be a professional and academic, and you guys don't watch this other stuff. That's just the bottom line. You don't watch it. Cardi B said the same thing about music. She said the reason after she made that her song WAP, WAP, she said that, if I made other stuff, you guys don't watch it. So this is part of the problem we got to fix. The intellectual stuff, a lot of people don't like to watch. I mean, it's right there in my title, Doctor. So anyway, you guys got to watch it. All right. So more ladies up in the air. Sounds good to me. What's that saying? Hot hit dogs holler. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about some reparations type of stuff. And so I was scrolling through some stuff, and again, I want to watch this thing by Sabby Sabs. So just the whole reparations talk, I'm kind of tired of it. I'm kind of over it. It comes up every so now and again. I'm not saying I definitely believe that we are owed reparations, and I don't think that we should get. I would be more in preference, or I think a better argument. Let me say it like this: a better argument can be made for reparations if they went along the Jim Crow segregation and all the policies that were enacted by the U.S. government, redlining, refusal to make us part of the Homestead Acts, refusal to give us the GI Bill, the burning down of our communities, the blockbusting to build highways, all this type of stuff, right? The inadequate funding of our schools in black districts, quote unquote black districts, all that type of stuff. I think that all that is I think all that relays into the current situation that is going on, not only between African Americans and but men and women, but just our overall situation, right? When you drive through a low income community, aka ghetto, urban community, whatever you want to call it, whatever we want to slap on it, I think that and it's my opinion that this is the result of the economic policies that were instituted and or supported by the U.S. government. That's just my opinion. All right. So here's a couple of things, right? So we when we take a look at reparations, when we take a look at reparations, right, this stuff has been on the table for a long time, right? National Reparations Funding Landscape Report. Uh, uh, Here's something else I'm going to get into a little bit later. This is a book here, From Here to Equality: Reparation for Black Americans in the 21st Century. This is by William Darity and A. Kristen Mullen, a couple of authors there. Let's see. And here is a podcast that you guys can go listen to. This was on December 23rd. It's called the William Darity and Kristen Mullen. That's what I just read before, on why it's time to pay reparations to Black Americans by the Poverty Research Policy. If you go over to Spotify, you type in poverty research policy, and you can scroll down and you'll see this episode. It's like 45 minutes or so. Check out that episode on that. In that episode, they brought up a man's name, Boris Bitker. The case for reparation, the case for Black reparations, and this is a screenshot from my Kindle account. This is a book that I bought. I just haven't had the chance to read it yet. But after hearing what Mullen and Darity said on the podcast that I previously mentioned, they bring up this book and the work that this man has done. I believe he was an attorney, and so, yeah, so I definitely want to read it. And he said exactly what I said, that the people who I'm reading your comment here. Let me keep on track here. The case for Black reparations, right? So Boris Bitker is echoing what I just said, that people who went through Jim Crow era and all that was involved in that are all deserving of reparations, not because of slavery and the work that we did. I think that's a tough case. I've always thought that was a tough case, right? You and I didn't do the work, but we are suffering from the legacy of the mental and psychological Holocaust and damage. I'm not saying that the physical Holocaust and damage that was done to us was should be forgotten about at all. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you want to get paid for a restitution or something else, then we should really look into what happened during Jim Crow. That's my opinion, and that's what Boris the Bitker wrote about in this particular book and all that. So some other things, right? Senator Cory Booker, a Booker reparation bill reaches 12 Senate co-sponsors, right? This was back in June 2019. So I'm just laying out that all this has been talked about so many times throughout history, right? U.S. Congress advances slavery reparations bill. I can't see the date of that. I can't see the date of that, but um, it looks like 2021 that was done, right? Harvard Kennedy School, the United States pays reparations every day, just not to Black America. So you can go over to this type of stuff and read about this, right? HKS faculty members Cornell William Brooks and Linda Bilmes explore why the extensive U.S. system of restorative justice is so disconnected from the multifaceted intergenerational harms suffered by Black Americans. Again, I just believe that the mental Holocaust and the mental damage that has been done to us is deserving of some type of correction. HR 40, which I believe is still on the table. It hasn't been officially taken off the table. In the podcast that I mentioned with Darity and Mullen, they talk about this bill and what changes need to be done to it. Of course, that was in 2023 to 2025 now. And then again, I'm admitting this is not my wheelhouse. I do try to read up on it a lot, but it's not my wheelhouse. I'm not going to try to delve into this in any great detail. Commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans Act. Let's see. If you have not read this, from The Atlantic, Ta-Nehisi Coates, The Case for Reparations. Again, he goes through not only the physical aspects that we went through in slavery, but also the mental harms that were caused through us through Jim Crow and all that was going on through Jim Crow, right? If you have not read that, you go over to The Atlantic, read that. It's definitely worth the read. William Darity and Kristen Mullen on why it's time to pay reparations to Black Americans. That's the Institute for Research on Poverty. Again, that's you can either read this over, and also I think if you go further down, this is a screenshot that I took. If you go farther down, you will see the link to the podcast that I mentioned. So go over there and read that. And so I think that that's all the stuff that I wanted to show right now. Hold on, let me take some of this off here. Um, how can let me take this off here, remove. How can US afford reparations and with what currency? Listen, I'm so sick of people saying this. I'm so sick of people asking that question. We have enough money. We spend more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. That it's been estimated that as much money we sent to the Ukraine, we could have solved the homeless crisis. We have the money. We have the money. The United States has the money. We could solve the homeless crisis. We could send students to college for free or at a drastically reduced price. Don't ever believe that we don't have the money. Do not ever believe that we don't have the money. The U.S. has it. We could solve the medical issues and all that. So we have the money. Don't ever believe that we don't. And we can play it with U.S. dollars. I recognize that it's up in the air right now. But as far as the BRICS nations and all that kind of stuff, but we have enough money to do it. And it's just the political will to make the corrections that are needed that were done to us. Speaking of the political will and the corrections that we need for the things that were done to us. This is from the NAACP. I don't know when this was written, but the year 2019. And I'm not going to read all of these, but this is their resolution for reparations. The NAACP is obviously standing behind it. Whereas African Americans have been enslaved in the United States from 1619 to 1865, and you can read through all that. Whereas there is a legal precedent for reparations and numerous prior recommendations for reparations, right? This is not the first time we're talking about it. And what we're talking about today is not new. The policy of 40 acres in the mill and William T. Sherman special field order number 15, right? We should have gotten it then. And, again, listening to people with far more expertise than I, if we would have gotten it, we would have been able to solve many of the issues, the financial problems that we're dealing with today. We would have had better schools, better neighborhoods, and all that, right? We wouldn't have had to sell many homes in order when they wanted to come through and create this nationalized highway system. Many of our homes were taken from us, or they were bought from us at drastically reduced prices, and they were never able to get that type of once they left their own homes, they were never able to get into new homes ever again. Just go listen to the podcast. It's just crazy. During the 1960s, some Black leaders revived the idea of reparations. 1969, James Forman, head of the Student Union Committee, proclaimed the Black Manifesto. I'm just putting this up. I'm not going to read the whole thing. 1980s, a new call for Black reparations, stimulated by two other movements that successfully secured payments from the U.S. government. The Supreme Court in 1980 ordered the federal government to pay the Sioux Indian tribes $122 million to compensate for the illegal seizure of tribal lands in 1977. That's what I'm saying. In my estimation, again, I'm no lawyer nor expert in this. However, I sincerely and wholeheartedly believe that we got to try to get reparations for the mental, psychological, and emotional damage that was done to us during Jim Crow, right? We didn't get GI Bills and everything like that, right? 1989, member Ray Jenkins, Detroit City Council resolution called for a $40 billion federal education fund for Black and college and trade school students, right? Reparations for financial compensation for African Americans whose ancestors were enslaved and lived through the Jim Crow era. Whereas the First Order NAACP should support reparations for Black people in the United States. We need a race-centered economic empowerment package for African Americans that builds generational wealth and accounts for not only slavery, but decades upon decades of economic pillaging. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. Reparations would involve a national apology, rights to the cannabis industry, right? Because you spent years locking Black men up, and now you want to give everyone else uh, access to sell weed. The same thing the Black men were being locked up for and harassed. Financial payment, social service benefits, and land grants to every descendant of enslaved African Americans and a Black person descendant of those living in the U.S. during including during the American slavery until the Jim Crow era in 1965. Absolutely agree with that. Land grant of 40 acres social services, whereas this, that, and the other, therefore be it resolved that the United NAACP reaffirms and stands in favor of financial reparations to African Americans and those of African descent in the United States that are descendants of slavery and Jim Crow era. I absolutely stand behind that, and I think that we deserve all that. Let's see. Remove. I agree. I happen to agree with you in some sense, but if by what you mean borrowed money, unfortunately, the interest payment is set to eclipse the military, infrastructure, education, etc., that have been on the back. I'm no expert in this in the financial system. I'm admitting that. I understand that we are in a mess right now. This, what's going on with the BRICS, the borrowing, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying, if you can borrow everything else, you can borrow money for this. That's my point, right? And it would just stimulate the economy. If men and women would buy homes, invest, build businesses, right? I can't see how it's going to be a negative, right? And of course, you listen to Umar Johnson, he thinks it will be a bunch of, Cadillac driving people. And I'm not exactly sure that he's wrong about that. Whether we have the mental capacity, not mental capacity, but the emotional maturity, I should say, the emotional maturity to deal with this type of thing is another question. But I certainly believe that we are certainly owed that. And the reason that we are in this situation, the reason we're at each other's throats as far as male-female relationships, the reason we fight in the streets, the reason we behave in these types of things is because of the issues and situations that were denied to us: the education, the social advancement, the ability to move out of the ghettos, right, or out of the ghettos, or congested urban environments. Because when you're living around a bunch of people and you're congested like that, fights break out. They know that. That's why these people want to keep expanding, right? This is well known in psychological literature, right? You got to get away from people in order to have more peace. So living on top of each other in these crowded urban environments and in projects and everything else that they stuffed us in, has been no good to our mental well-being. Let's see, infrastructure, education, et cetera, have been on the back burner for too long, and we're seeing the consequences. If left unattended for too long, the damage can be irreparable. That's already, I mean, they've made conscious decisions to put this stuff on the back burner. That's the problem. That's the issue. They've made conscious decisions to put this stuff on the back burner. This stuff, the education, infrastructure, investing in the people has been a conscious decision. So you look at Germany and you look at other countries in the so-called West who said they wanted education in parks, and that's what they wanted. The United States, after 1945, said we're the military power of the world, and we're going to continue to escalate our military dominance, and that's how we got the Cold War with the Russians. And all we did was pour more money into the economic system of the Cold War machine. Then we got the prison industrial complex on one hand, we got the military industrial complex on the other hand, and we have not invested in our people, right? So now we got people who are very limited in their skill set, right? I saw a bunch of construction workers. I go for my lunch. I saw a bunch of construction workers. None of them speaking English, right? Because we have made it an investment not in infrastructure or training people to do those types of jobs, concrete work, carpentry, and all this type of stuff, right? We don't have a massive influx of people doing that type of thing, right? So we got to import them. So yeah, will there be a disbursement? Again, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know. So I mean, I think it's got to be worked out. My point is, my point in saying this is that it's owed to us. This is my philosophy. It's owed to us. How that would be distributed, or the nuances of that, I don't have the answer to that. And a lot of people don't want it because they think it is going to upset the apple cart, if you will. Other people are thinking that if we get it, then it's, on one hand, if we get it, then that'll be the end of the debt. We can never ever talk about slavery. We can never ever talk about police brutality. We can never ever talk about Jim Crow again, because we paid you. The philosophy is we paid you. Stop talking about it. That's one set of philosophies. And you can watch these debates on YouTube, which I watched a number of them. Another philosophy is, if we pay people, if you give them reparations, then everyone who doesn't get them, aka Europeans, will be upset because how come these people got this money and you gave them money for nothing? They weren't slaves. How come you're giving them all this type of stuff? And it may spark another type of or reinvigor negative animosity towards African people, African descendants. So these are all arguments against actually giving people reparations. Miles, unfortunately, the likelihood is not too high. The wealth that exists is devalued at a rapid rate. Well, talk about wealth and stuff. You got to tell that to the people who actually have money. Elon Musk and his boys, they are certainly living high on the hog. So there's enough money to go around, So don't believe that. Don't believe this. We don't have money. We don't have it. I just don't buy that, because if they want a new supersonic jet, they need a new aircraft carrier, you best believe they'll find the money to build one, right? So if they can find the money, for $1 trillion, I mean, we spent, how much I looked it up the other day. How much, let me look this up, and I want to get to the show here. How much does it cost to keep an aircraft carrier at sea per day? Right, every day it costs a significant amount to operate an aircraft carrier at sea, ranging from $6.5 million to $8 million per day for an aircraft strike group, which includes a carrier, its air wing, and support ships. Right. So between fuel, paying these people every day, we're $6.5 million to $8 million per day. Don't believe we don't have no money. You take one, where we got 11 super carriers or something like that. You take one or two of them off. We got the money. Stop it. Stop it. We got the money. Skull Knight, welcome. If it's being devalued to reparate, why hasn't it stopped other marginalized groups from getting the reparations or funding dollars that are still green? Exactly. This is exactly my point. Exactly. We got the money. Don't believe we don't have the money. All right. So who the heck is texting me? And that what I just read there was from AI. So take that with a grain of salt or whatever. But I know it costs millions of dollars to run a day. Let's see. Medium. Oh, this is, you can't see that. Reasons why 13 billion aircrafts cost $8 million a day. So yeah, it's roughly $8 million if you Google it. All right. Let's see. So I did 5 years ago. We were talking, when the reparations talk was all up. I had an audio podcast, and I had a lady whose name is Dr. Rhoda Howard Hassman. She is of Jewish descent, and I had her on the show. Now I videotaped the recording, and I only put up the audio. So I still have the videotape. So we're going to play about 20 minutes of this, and then after that I'm going to get into Sabby Sab's video. So this is me and Dr. Howard Hassman, and I have a skull cap on. It was a audio podcast, so I wasn't trying to be super impressive, but she wanted to do see me as we did this talk. So, but I recorded it. So here we go. Much for agreeing to be on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Who's that behind you though in the cartoon, in the caricature?
What's that? Those are my kids. Yes.
Are they?
Those are my kids. Yeah, those are my kids. They went to Vegas and they had the caricature done. Yeah. So thank you once again for coming on Captain Hunter's podcast. I really appreciate it. And would you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a Canadian, and I am a retired university professor. And for about the last 40 years, hello, are you still there? Okay.
Yes.
For about the last 40 years, I've worked on human rights, mainly in an international context. But I started my career working on Africa, and did my PhD on colonialism and underdevelopment in Ghana. And then many years later, I decided to write a book on reparations to Africa. So as part of that, I got interested in the question of reparations to African Americans. And back in 2004, I published a scholarly article comparing reparations to African Americans to Japanese Americans. Probably 10 people read it. But then I put an article on the conversation last year, and so far there's been about 100,000 clicks.
Okay.
So I just want to say, first of all, that if you're asking me about reparations, I'm going to be talking about the difficulties of getting reparations for I personally am opposed to them. I'm not. I support reparations for African Americans. The other thing is that the work I've done is based on what they call social movements theory. That started in the 60s. How do social movements, for example, for civil rights, how do they work? How do they not work? I'm not an original scholar of that theory. I'm just using it to talk about African Americans and Japanese Americans.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And that's where I found out about you as in that article on the conversation. So I'm probably one of the 100,000 people who have clicked on it and liked it. So it was very interesting article that you wrote. So tell us how you got involved with the movement at all. I mean, what made you be drawn to the argument of reparations, the underdevelopment of African countries, and et cetera?
Well, the normal way, I was a young person and I was interested in traveling. And it turned out that my professor was a very distinguished professor who had started off in African studies 20 years before me. And he suggested I go to Ghana. So I did. In retrospect, I don't know whether it's a good idea for young white women to go off to Africa and write books. But I understand.
Okay.
I understand that the book is still in use that I wrote on colonialism and underdevelopment in Ghana. So that makes me happy.
Okay.
But my heart was with human rights. So I wrote a book on human rights in Commonwealth, English-speaking Africa. And then some years later, as I said, I decided to write on the reparations because there was a movement for reparations. In 2001, at the World Conference on Racism and Racial Discrimination in Johannesburg, there was a lot of talk about reparations. Unfortunately, that was just before 9/11. So it had sort of zero resonance. Everybody forgot about that conference after 9/11. There was also a lot of Africans have asked, and probably African Americans may ask this too, not only why do Japanese Americans get reparations, but why do Jewish people get reparations for the Holocaust? And so I was interested in that because my own father was a refugee from Nazi Germany. And he didn't get reparations because the German court decided he left for political reasons. But my grandmother lived on reparations because her husband was one of the people who was liberated from Auschwitz 75 years ago. So they had lost everything and they got reparations. So I knew about reparations personally. So it just became a very interesting question. And the answer to why Japanese Americans get reparations and why Jewish people got reparations and African Americans can't, in a nutshell, is that for both of those cases, it's much more discreet. It's a short period of time. You know exactly who did it. You know who the perpetrators were, as it were. You know who the culprits were, or the victims were. And you know it had nothing to do with anything else. Whereas if you look at African Americans, you're going from the day the first enslaved African arrived, which is what I think, June 1619, right? Something like that, till today.
Right.
So it's a lot more complicated. And there's a lot more people who have engaged in slaveholding and racism and discrimination.
Right, right. So that presents the difficulty. Now, I know that I've watched a lot of debates. Obviously, I'm of African American descent. I might not be very well known from the visuals of me.
You look kind of African American.
Yeah, he looks kind of sort of. So I watch a lot of debates, and I can actually see both sides as far as the reparations aspect of it. There was one I was just watching before we came on. Well, they weren't even African Americans; they were all from England.
Yeah,
I don't know what they call them. Yeah, British
African Brits or Afro Brits or something. Yeah,
Afro Brits. Okay, and so there was two on each side, going back and forth about whether the West, that was actually the name of it, should pay reparations. So I'm actually very, very intrigued by this. And what drew me number one to your article is is the fact that in our election season we had Cory Booker and Kamala Harris when they were in the presidential race talking about reparations and all that kind of stuff. Now that they're not in it, no one's bringing it up anymore. And so I often feel as if we're being puppets in someone else's game, and that bothers me. That it only comes up at certain times, as you mentioned, 2001. Then after 9/11, nobody's talking about it anymore. And here we are, 19 years later, and it comes up sporadically.
Well, I think actually, taking the long view, it's amazing that it came up at all this year. And that not only Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, but also two white candidates supported reparations.
Barry Williamson
and the man who owns Starbucks, I think.
Right.
I think, right? So what they are is the 15% of white people who support reparations, who are probably people who understand history, who understand the historical connection between being an African American now and your ancestors having been enslaved or having suffered through Jim Crow or redlining 50 years ago and all that stuff. So that's more than one would have expected a few years ago, which doesn't mean that you should feel very optimistic about things. There's no way in hell you're going to get anything out of the current administration. So we can forget that one.
We can forget that one, yeah.
Yeah. Obama would have been in a bind because he would have been seen to be favoring African Americans, and he tried very hard not to do that.
He was very successful in that, yes.
Yeah. So you really are going to need somebody who is white but willing to apologize or to do more than that. But the other thing there's a whole bunch of stages of reparations. So I read Ta-Nehisi Coates' article in Atlanta in 2014.
Right.
And he was only talking about the very first stage, which was acknowledgement. He wasn't even talking about apology, just acknowledgement. Now, after acknowledgement, you have apology. Then you have symbolic reparations, like tearing down statues of Robert E. Lee and putting up statues to African Americans who'd resisted and things like that. And only after that do you even get to think about financial reparations. And then you have to think about, is it group reparations, or do you give money to individuals? How do you decide who among the population of African descent is descended from people who were enslaved as opposed to people who came from the Caribbean or people who've come from Africa? So it becomes very complicated.
Yeah, so the complexity of this is really the issue. And in a number of articles that you even sent me, that you talk about how difficult it is because one of the problems is that there's no cohesive units. Right, we have African Americans, we have African Brits, and there's no cohesive unit as far as wanting it across the board. In comparison to Japanese, we all know who they were, and Jewish people, we all know who they were.
Yeah. So that's one of the problems. I think. I mean, if you only look at the symbolic level, like acknowledgement, you don't have to find out who's descended from people who suffered Jim Crow, right?
Right.
You just say Jim Crow was wrong.
Right.
And you go from there. Similarly, for an apology, I think if you have an apology, then you would, I think I told you this on the phone, you would start with the president and the governor of every single state that ever had enslaved people. And you would have a great big ritual apology. By a ritual apology, I mean it would be something like we had in Canada to Indigenous people in 2008. You have it in the Capitol. You have everybody, in very formal dress. You have ceremonies, maybe with some music that you consult with African American leaders first. Now you'd have to figure out who the leaders were.
Yeah.
But, and then you have the kind of odd situation of African American governors who would be apologizing to African Americans for the things that happened to their ancestors too. But they represent the state. They would represent the Massachusetts or wherever. And you have to clear it all with African Americans ahead of time. You have to clear the actual text of the apology. All that has to be done ahead of time. And it has to be like a big national event. that
Right.
everybody or lots of people are watching. Then you go for the symbolic thing. Now, you've already got part of the way there. You've got a museum of African American history there, for example, in the mall, which unfortunately I haven't seen yet. But I mean, it took far too long to build that museum.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna stop it off there. So she just talked about we're just getting into the complexities of it. I think the article that I mentioned was in something called The Conversation. You can look for or just Google her name, Rhoda Howard Hassman, Hassman. This is the book that she was referencing. I probably should have made that a little bit. Let's see. This is the book that she was referencing, Reparations to Africa, Howard E. Rhoda Howard Hassman and Anthony Lombardo. So that's the book that she has. I think that was on Barnes and Noble. So you can probably get it on Amazon. I don't know, but that's the book that she was referencing. And then she wrote an article in The Conversation, which is where I saw, which is where I found her. What am I doing here? What's going on? What is going on? Okay. So you can check that out. So that's that. And here's another book that I meant to put on screen here, Image File. This one I did read. So that again, that interview that I did with her was 5 years ago in 2020. And here's another book that I read by Randall Robinson, What America Owes to Blacks. This was actually a very good book. I actually really enjoyed that. That's in my Kindle as well. So I highly suggest people, if you're more interested in that, read their material and all that. So that's that. So we're going to get into the main event here, and that is speaking of governors that Dr. Hassman suggested, do some type of apology. We're going to get into a governor recently, and this is the reason I wanted to do this is because our favorite independent journalist here, Sabby Sabs, share screen, went off. Well, I haven't seen the video yet, but I can almost tell by the title, and title of her thing is Backlash. Wes Moore, who's the governor of Maryland, vetoes reparation bill. I heard a few other people talking about it, and I don't live in Maryland, but I just thought it was curious that they would veto a bill about reparations, in particular a Black man himself. Greetings to you, High Vibe. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. That's my point. How do you put a dollar amount on that? Families have built multi-billion-dollar empires, beginning with slave ownership. Start with those families. Well, I think a couple of universities have done something about that. I can't remember, but some universities, including Yale, has acknowledged their past, right? Yeah, multi-billion-dollar companies, whether it's education, a lot of insurance companies who are insuring African Americans and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an issue. I mean, it's an issue about how we get this done, and we've studied it. My point is, we've studied it all. We've always got. That's why I put up all those pictures before. We've talked about it. They've done studies. They've done all this work. They've done the work. Again, William Darity and Dr. Mullen did the work. They wrote a book about it. And this is, that they did stuff in 2023, 2025 now, and here this governor is vetoing it. They know all this, right? They know all this. So we're gonna get into it, and we're gonna get into what Sabby Sabs is saying about this. So let me speed it up a little.
Wes Moore is the governor of Maryland. I spoke to some of my family members in Maryland. That's where my family is originally from. They are not fond of Wes Moore. Because you see, Wes Moore, though, he kind of reminds me of the next Barack Obama. That's what he reminds me of. And when Wes Moore was running for office, he really gave people the hope, particularly in the Black community, that he was going to look out for them. Right? Wink, wink. Yeah. But Wes Moore did something recently that has given people a headache, particularly Black communities. Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore vetoes bill to study reparations. Reparations. That's him, guys. That is Wes Moore. The governor, they had a lot of hope and faith in when he was running for governor, and particularly Black voters in Maryland said he's going to be the one to hear our needs and understand our issues, et cetera. No, 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 no. And I'm warning you about Wes Moore right now. In my opinion, I believe that he is the next Barack Obama. They are already, and by they, I mean corporate media is already mentioning his name as a potential 2028 presidential candidate. Now, he said on The View he's not interested in running for president, but we've heard people say this before, and then they end up running anyway, right? So let me show you what Wes Moore did. Let's go on. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has come under fire after he vetoed a state bill to study reparations as a remedy to the lasting economic and human harms caused by slavery and racism. 3 other Democratic states have successfully passed reparations bills in recent years: California, Illinois, and New York. Wes Moore is the country's only sitting Black governor and is widely seen as a potential Democratic candidate for president in 2028. Maryland's Legislative Black Caucus condemned Moore's move and suggests lawmakers would override his veto. So let's go back to, let's put his face back up here, okay? We'll make it a little bit bigger for you. Don't hide from us, Wes. Let's put him back up here, okay? Okay. See, the problem is this. You have candidates like Wes Moore, like Hakeem Jeffries, like Richie Torres, like Jim Clyburn, and they are supposed to represent the Black community. And so people will look at them and say, hey, there's someone running for office that looks like me. Hey, they're talking about the Black community. All right, I should vote and support this person. What a lot of times what people don't know is that people like Wes Moore were selected, they were already chosen. And a lot of times, I'm willing to bet you, AIPAC already recruited Wes Moore before he ran for governor. Just like I told you the breakdown about Hakeem Jeffries, how AIPAC was already in his ear before he ran for Congress, I'm willing to bet you that AIPAC and probably J Street as well were already in Wes Moore's ear before he ran for governor. These people have been selected for you. We got to be very careful. We have to be careful that the people that are being put in front of us, that they say represent you, are there because they're from the grassroots and not there because they were selected by corporate interests or they were selected by said lobby interest groups to pretend like they're for the Black community, pretend like they're going to do something for Black people when they're actually not.
Y'all make sure you hit the like button. Hit the like button. I would appreciate that. Hit the like button, right? There's the other banner right here. Hit the like button if you want to buy me some lunch. I would appreciate it. Hit the like button.
Now, what Wes Moore went on to say is that he vetoed it because he said we don't need another study. We don't need more studies. The studies have already been done. But what he did not do is you don't see him pushing any type of bill to go straight towards cash reparations. You don't see him doing that. What you see him talking about is we got to move towards like entrepreneurship and uplifting Black communities here in Maryland. And as someone whose family is from Maryland, and particularly Baltimore, I have to tell you, what these elected officials have done to Baltimore is absolutely disgusting. The way that they have allowed the city to crumble, the way that they have ignored, the claims and the screams from the Black community over the years is absolutely disgusting. Baltimore is the only city that I can go to when I go back home to visit my family where you literally have a building that's demolished in the middle of the freaking road and the city doesn't even clean it up. That's Baltimore. Where you have people living in poverty, where you have to walk around one block, you might be downtown, you go right up the street, you're back in the ghetto. They never wanted to improve it. They never wanted to fix it. And by the way, Baltimore, as long as I remember, had Black mayor after Black mayor after Black mayor. Every puppet that has been put in front of them was selected. They're not from the grassroots. Wes Moore is not from the grassroots. Number one, he's smiling too damn hard for me. Now, if I would have met Wes Moore, as soon as I saw this smile, I'm like, nah, that motherfucker's smiling too hard. He's smiling a little too hard, just like Barack Obama was smiling too hard. And you can't trust it. You can't trust it. You look a little too polished for me. You don't scream grassroots. You look like somebody threw you in a suit and they said, go step in front of the Black community, but also make sure you do the bidding of Israel. So the point that I'm trying to make is this. I agree. Studies have been done. But what he did not do is go forward and say, yes, American descendants of slavery in Maryland, yes, they are owed reparations. Yes, they are owed cash reparations. He wouldn't do that. He doesn't do that. He's talking about, let's look into entrepreneurship. You know what you need to be an entrepreneur? Healthcare. More people would try. And if you have a family and your family's on your health insurance, you're not going to just quit your job and say, I want to try to open a business. Now I don't have healthcare for my kids. Is Wes Moore doing that? You want to talk about vetoing bills? I bet you Wes Moore didn't veto any bills for Israel. Every state in this country gives money to Israel. Do you know that? That's right. My state of Massachusetts also gives money to Israel. I bet you he didn't veto any of those damn bills. These are puppets that are selected, that are placed in front of you to trick you, to make you think that these people are going to serve your community when they're actually going to put the interests of Wall Street, the MIC, and of course, Israel first. That's why he passes it off and says, well, we don't need another study. let's focus on uplifting communities and entrepreneurship. You know how many times I've heard this story? Do you know how many times I've heard, let's talk about entrepreneurship, let's uplift communities? For years. He is being promoted to run for president in 2028. He's not going to push forward any type of reparations bill because Wes Moore wants to continue his political career. Now, he said he's not interested in running for president in 2028, but we'll see. Even if it's not 2028, he may be interested at some point later on down the road. The point is, he doesn't want to mess up his political career. Now, he may have just lost some votes in Maryland from the Black community for this one, but he'll make it up. The Democratic Party will help him make up those votes. They'll go out to the lily white communities. They'll go out to those liberal communities in the suburbs, and they'll get white people to come out and support Wes.
And this is really what I wanted to, this is really the problem of us not being on the same page, the same mind, the same focus. This problem of us being so bifurcated, so atomized in our own silos, not connected, wanting to disregard somebody because they are a different religion, or, and I'm talking about within the Black community, or because of where they live, or because they're not bougie enough, or this 10%, you know, the top 10%, or the talented 10th, and all this other garbage that we got going on. Our vote doesn't matter. We listen, you know, the voting block, we talk about the voting block, 13% of the population, the vast majority of them, of the 13% of the population, the vast majority, 85% or so, always vote for the Democrats. And that's why the Republican Party is not trying to en masse pull us away, because our vote doesn't matter. They can make it up. They can appeal to other lobby groups, the white evangelicals, the Midwesterners. They can appeal to those types of people and negate and override, in many cases, our collective vote. So we gotta do something about that. And we gotta join onto a gravy train that is going to force our issues to Miles's point here, right? When are we ever going to receive what we ask for? We don't receive what we ask for because we don't have the political and the economic force that we need to have. Now, the politics, or the politics and the policies would change if we had the backing, if we had the financial backing in order to get the people, to push the people that we want forward. And when they don't hold to their promises, then we have the collective will to vote them out of office, and we have the financial power to vote them out of office. But this is another reason that I would say that they don't want to give it to us. They don't have to give it to us. If we give them this financial power, they're going to turn that financial power into economic power, to wealth, generational wealth building, and that is, of course, going to translate into voting power. And this is what people can't have. Can't have that. So yeah, so this is an issue. So this is an issue of greater proportion, and you know, this fact that we are so bifurcated, familial wise, you know, men versus women, and this is why I'm talking about this, right? This all matters when we talk about all the different policies that we look at that we don't like. You know, the prison to school to prison pipeline. We don't like how our education system going. We don't like healthcare, as she just mentioned. We don't like any of the things that are happening to us from a political standpoint. But yet, as an African American group, conglomerate, African American community, we don't have any political power in order to push these things. All we're doing is appealing. That's what Malcolm X, you guys talk about Malcolm X, I talk about too. That's all we're doing is appealing to someone else's kindness. And as long as we are appealing to someone else's kindness, that they will never behave like a monster, we are actually in their, we're not in control. We're actually at their mercy. If you got to appeal to a monster so that they won't eat you, then you have no power. So we got to develop this power. We're not going to be able to develop this economic power, which will then transfer or translate into political power, unless we come together. So this fighting, this gender war we got going on, this fighting, we can't see eye to eye with this. I don't need you. You don't need me. I'm just going to go my own way. I'm going to go overseas. I'm going to do. It's all keeping us on the bottom rung. They don't have to listen to us. They don't have to listen to us. I was talking to one of my listeners who lives in a foreign country, and she just says, you know, in a foreign country, she's it's a majority African place, but they allow the Asians and the East Indians to come over there. And because the black folks didn't think collectively, they sold their land. They weren't thinking 2-3 generations ahead. They weren't thinking about that. So, our fight, the fight that we have as being African Americans, is the same fight that Africans have, whether they're in Belize or St. Lucia or in Panama or in Britain or in Brazil, or even on the whole continent. This is the issue that we're having, and we got to start thinking Pan-African wise. And that's why I don't like when I hear people say we're not a monolith. That's the issue. That's exactly what they want you to say, is that we're not a monolith. That's the exact problem. When we start thinking collectively, when we start thinking that whatever happens to Africans who live in Palestine, to Africans who live in South Africa, to Africans who live in Panama, Brazil, Belize, Trinidad, Jamaica, Canada, Mexico, we're all Africans and part of this family. And until we get that understanding, we will always be behind. We will always be behind. We need to become a serious exactly, high vibe. This is the issue. This is the issue. If voting mattered, they wouldn't ask us, they wouldn't let us do it. But I agree with that sentiment to a good proportion. The problem is that we have been so corrupted. We as an American population has been so corrupted by our own political system, right? When the Supreme Court said that a corporation now has the same political power or same political vote as a single person, and that's how they can buy elections. And Mark Twain, that was certainly before Mark Twain, but it's just gotten progressively worse since Twain uttered that or wrote it or whatever. And it's just gotten worse. And we haven't coalesced to become that political bloc, that political force. And it can start off slow. If you got things done in, how is it that we had these black mayors in Baltimore and didn't get anything done? There was a time when they had a black mayor in Atlanta. He was getting things done, making sure that the black folks who own asphalt companies and this, that, and the other got things. The same political things, the same political mindset has to be done within all people who are elected to Congress. So this is Sabby's point, is that they're choosing these people who are going to do what they want them to do rather than a grassroots person. People have asked me to run. I'm like, I'm not gonna run because I'm not going to run for my local first city government and eventually state. They've asked me to do that. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to be myself, and I don't know if I can get elected because I'm going to say what I think. So you can't have people doing that. So I'm not telling other people not to do it. I'm saying we need more people who are going to do the right thing. And if these people aren't going to do it, if we don't have the power behind us, all these local churches, all these local small businesses, really, we all need to think collectively. We all need to become what we need them to become. And we got to have the balls to do it. We got to have the balls to do it. So we keep allowing ourselves to be herded into the Democratic Party without any demand. And exactly, they don't have to meet them. They're loving the infighting. And as long as they keep loving the infighting and they don't have to meet our demands, they'll never get anything done. We'll never get anything done. We'll always be begging. We'll always be out there looking for a handout. And we talk about reparations. This is what Malcolm was a lot of times talking about, right? We don't need a small mom and pop. We need factories. We need to own the mines. We need to own the land. That's what a lot of reparations is about. We need the land. We need the mine and the minerals and the other precious resources that these people are fighting over, right? This is what we need. Our generation's proof of all that was promised that we did not reap the full benefits from politicians to education. As long as you give one of us, the infighting comment, as long as you give one of us some butter biscuits, we'll sell the other one out. I remember I had this lady on my show one time when I was doing Captain Hunter's podcast. I had this lady on my show one time, and I really think she misunderstood what I was saying, because she was one of these ladies who goes into different schools and tries them, does anti-racist work. I don't mean to be saying that with such disdain, but she does anti-racist work. In other words, she trains the principals and the teachers how to treat each other or in faculty, as well as the children, with more empathy, sympathy, and be less racist. Obviously, great work. And what I said to her was on the show, I don't remember I said it on the show, or maybe it was a different conversation we had, but I said to her, listen, I think that the events that happened to us in slavery, we were bred to sell each other out. I mean, bred to do that, rewarded to do that. The butter biscuits phenomenon was a real thing, right? People would become emancipated, right? If you, as a slave, told about another possible insurrection or revolt that was going to happen, you could become free. So people were selling each other out so they could get their freedom. So I said to her, to the lady who was on my show, maybe that thing has become ingrained within our DNA, because we know that fear is ingrained. We know that many other traumatic instances that happen to people become ingrained into people's DNA. So I simply saying maybe that's something that was ingrained to us, that we can't get along because we have been rewarded, bred, and ingrained with the idea that we got to sell each other out. So we talk about how we can't function as long as we can't work with businesses. We can't get along. We're at a big club with 200 people in there. A fight breaks out. Maybe this isn't just a matter of culture. It's just a matter of our just DNA. We just are at each other all the time. And if we need to take a serious look at that, I think that Joy DeGruy has done some work in that post-traumatic slave disorder. But maybe we ought to really take a serious look at, are we bred not to trust each other, work with each other, and to sell each other out? Because if we can't get along politically, we can't get along now familially, as far as men and women. Maybe this is something deeper within our DNA that we really got to root out. I'm just speculating here. The plebs in the Colosseum were so preoccupied with the bread and wine and games that they didn't even notice the Rome was on fire as it was being invaded. Sound familiar? Well, that's definitely going on right now. Why do you think they pay these sports athletes millions of dollars? It's all distraction. It's all distraction, right? So the political podcasts are nowhere as near as the entertainment podcasts, right? So yeah, all this stuff is going on. You're absolutely right, Garrett. What's going on within Gaza? What's going on with the South Africans? What's going on with the United States in Iran? What's going on with the Ukraine? And Russia? Oh yeah, but this guy's got a new contract. Oh, it's NBA Finals right now. Got to watch all this. Oh yeah, Pop the Balloon, all this other stuff, right? Pop the Balloon, all these different podcasts. We're all distracted. New TV shows. Keep them entertained. So, all right, let's continue on Savvy Sabs here.
How do you guys think Jim Clyburn continues to win? It's not a lot of Black people voting for Jim Clyburn. It's white liberals voting for Jim Clyburn. So we got to start passing on, and we're not going for the Todd Bridges dude. He really kind of reminds me of Todd Bridges. We're not going for the Todd Bridges dude. You got to be careful. You can't go for the Hakeem Jeffries types. These people are selected. Phil Scott said something about this as well. I want you to hear what Phil Scott had to say, because what he references here is how the Democratic Party, they just don't learn, and they still expect to get our vote, and they keep putting us last or removing us from the list entirely. Listen to this.
You just don't know when to quit, do you? You don't know when to quit. You don't realize, do you like to lose? Do you like to lose? Look at how you lost terribly with Kamala Harris. You gave this woman, what she get $1 billion or something like that? She got, and you lost. You lost because a lot of Black people said it out. That's really what a lot of it is. And some Black people that did vote, some voted more for Trump, okay, than the last time. Instead of you assessing and saying, you know what, reparations is a very important issue to the most important block of votes that we have. It's the FBA vote. You still pushing. No, we ain't doing that. No reparations, no nothing. We're not doing it. How many more elections do you have to lose? How many? Then we get to this other thing. We talk about the Democrats and what they've done. See, let's go back to the
pause for a second. That's the thing, right? Because I think the plan of the Democratic Party, I think eventually they want to get to the point where they don't have to rely on the Black vote. I really do. I think that's the plan. I think, look, the same way that I present the data on this show, they saw the data before I did, okay? So the same way that I show you the numbers, how Black people stayed home in 2024, when you compare Kamala's election to her predecessors, she lost the Black vote. The same way I show you those numbers, they saw those numbers too. They know what's happening. So I think their goal is to try to get other groups to get votes from other groups so they don't have to rely on the Black vote. Now, that's not going to happen very quickly. That'll probably be some time. It'll probably take about years before they could get to that point. In the meantime, they'll just dress up people and put them in front of you and say they look like you and they're Black like you. So you support them and vote for them, even though, wink, wink, they're going to be working for me and doing things for me.
Civil rights movement. You know why the civil rights movement worked? You know why the civil rights movement, why they got so much done in that time period? Because it was FBAs. 98% FBAs, because you had a couple Caribbean brothers and sisters in the mix, but it was majority FBAs, all on code. We're trying to get ourselves free. When the Democrats start importing people here, okay, and they start saying, how do we undermine FBA unity? We really can't see. We go in and try to do it. They're gonna be suspicious of that. They're gonna see us coming. They're gonna really unify and get at us. So what do? We go handpick certain people from the diaspora to come over here. It's not the brothers and sisters in the diaspora that's the riders, right? It's not them. I've met plenty of them. They have told me about the people that come over here to America. Just like with the situation with the Afrikaners, you got the white people in South Africa say, them people going over there, that's not the ones you want. They saying it. The white South Africans are saying it, right? Excuse me. And I've met Africans, even talked to some Caribbeans and say, hey, a lot of people that come over here, that's not really the ones, right? And if I did not go over there and talk to them face to face, I would have a different attitude about it, right? I'd probably be extremely anti-immigrant from the diaspora if I didn't go over there and see for myself. But now I know, of course, with travel and talking to brothers and sisters too, we know that's not the case.
So Phil Scott's talking about his experience. And the thing I want to add here is there's been like, I guess, controversy about like Wes Moore. Some people say he's not a Black American. His father, from what the information I looked at, his father is American descendant of slavery. His father is, his mother is not. So just FYI for people who were wondering here. So they handpick people that's going to sell out. They bring their parents over here. They raise their kids to look at us different. They say they want to come over here, benefit from all our hurt, pain, and death to benefit. There would be no such thing as a Wes Moore if it wouldn't been for our ancestors. Okay, and then you get in this position, and you can do good in this position, and you say no, which you benefited coming from the Caribbean, coming from Jamaica. You benefited because them folks didn't want nobody over here but them. And I think one of the points that Phil Scott is making here is that the thing is, it shouldn't even be this way, right? But you see, the system is fixed. It shouldn't be this way. When you look at the Black diaspora, we should all want to work together, but that's not what happens. That's not the way that things work. Now, Wes Moore in particular, this is something that I brought up on Mark Lamont Hill's show. I think that the people do need to understand that it seems like we are constantly being looked over. It seems like, and by we, I mean those of us who are American descendants of slavery, right? Those of us who are FBA. You really want to tell me you think Kamala Harris was qualified? Because I can name a number of other women, if we want to stick with the women route, that were 100% qualified, way more qualified than Kamala Harris. Black ones. You really think Kamala Harris was qualified? Because I don't think she was. So when you see like Phil Scott like say these things, and sometimes people hear this and they'll say,
I don't think Kamala Harris was either. I thought it was a bad joke, but neither do I think that. I don't think that Trump was either. But
oh, Phil Scott's anti-immigrant, No, that's not the case. Phil Scott has traveled, like he talked about this before. He's gone to several countries in Africa and all that type of stuff. Phil Scott, when he's talking about the people that are not trying to work together, he's talking about the people who are trying to divide. He's talking about those who look down on Black Americans the same way that some white people look down on us. That's who he's talking about. And it seems like it is one after another.
That confuses me so much when I talk to people like that. And I had a friend of mine who I played chess with. He was a Jamaican brother. I mean, he was from Jamaica. Well, his parents were from Jamaica, but he grew up here, so he didn't have the accent. I used to ask him about that, like, "Yo, what's up with that, man? How come you guys don't?" And he always used to dance around and beat around the bush. He really wouldn't tell me, like, why is that? Why do y'all don't you you got Dominican people who don't think that they're Black or don't think that they have African blood, and like, yo, this is crazy. This is crazy, it's wild. It's wild to me. It's wild to me to see this type of behavior constantly going on here.
Because it was Barack Obama, then it was Kamala Harris, and now the corporate media and the Democratic Party, they trying to push Wes Moore. I'm looking at the timing of all of this. It's like Wes Moore goes on The View and they're trying to convince him to run for president in 2028. Next thing you know, he vetoes the reparations bill. And like I said, you can say, yeah, we don't need another study. The numbers that study's already been done, the information is there. But then the next response to that is, yeah, let's move forward to pursue reparations for descendants here in Maryland. He's not doing that. Because I know, and I'm pretty sure he knows, that all the big money interest groups that back him and support him don't want that. The moment he goes down that road, his political career will probably be over. AIPAC, J Street, all these lobby interest groups that back him would drop him. And that would be that.
And you talk about these other interest groups. And I don't want to go too far, but I've read some stuff about these different lobbies. they have all this power and stuff, and they send them all the money back to their home places, to their home countries, and they got no issues supporting their own. But somehow when it comes to African people, whether it's the Africans in on the continent, or it's the Africans in the Caribbean, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Bahamas, Jamaica, all of a sudden, these people, they don't have any political will to get things done. Again, I was talking to a sister the other day, who's what's going on in her home country, right? Just, they're watching the dollar and how, what mines are going to be reopened and all this stuff. All at the behest of American corporations and stuff. We're all in it. So why you think that you're better because you live because you came from the Bahamas or the Caribbean or St. Lucia, you come over here and you look down your nose? The only reason that you're allowed to come here is because African Americans, two reasons, really. It's really the civil rights movement. It's two reasons. Number one, African Americans didn't want to be in the field anymore, and they needed more people to be in the field. I mean, that's why all these different people from South America are coming up, because African Americans didn't want to do this work anymore. Somebody has to do it, because we know certain people ain't going to do it. And the African Americans wanted to move up in society. So therefore we pushed for more doors to be opened. So why would the people would look down upon their noses on us? It's confusing to me. Marylander here. Is that what y'all call it? Marylander? I don't know what people call it. Marylander here. I would never vote for him. Tether Coon. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I don't know this brother, I just heard about him just now. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
You would hear no more about Wes Moore. He would just be that one dude that kind of looked like Todd Bridges. That was the governor of Maryland. Listen to this part as well.
Keep undermining us every step of the way. How the Democrats is going to do what's right by Black people when you have non-FBAs and a few FBAs too, as part of the boule, undermining us constantly. This is why the grassroots can't stand y'all behind.
The grassroots. And that's the part I really wanted to drive home. Hakeem Jeffries, Wes Moore, Jim Clyburn. Jim just need to go ahead and retire. Just retired. Kamala, all these people are not grassroots. They're not from the grassroots.
I really wish that people would stop claiming Kamala Harris. That really bugs me. It really does. It really bugs me that they claim her.
Some of these people were selected when they were in college. Some of them already had lobby interest groups like AIPAC looking at them when they were in high school. Cory Booker, same thing. They're not from the grassroots, and that's why they get as far as they do in the political space. Now, he mentioned the boule, and this is another thing we brought up before on the show. The Black boule, the gatekeepers, the Roland Martins. Like this is another problem, right? Some people would refer to them as the Huxtables, kind of like the Huxtables, but they also help maintain that status quo and maintain that infrastructure. They also actively work to silence and black out the Black grassroots. They work to do that. And the thing is, like, people think they say, oh, it's just white people working against Black people. No, it's not. They actively work to gatekeep and to prevent any more attention going towards something that's grassroots. Now, you want to hear something that's funny? Andy Ellis, who I had on the show, who is running for governor of Maryland, running the Green Party, guess what the big thing on his sign is? The big thing that he's pushing for is reparations, cash reparations. And the current governor of Maryland, who is Black, just told you, no, we don't need that. Let's look at entrepreneurship and uplifting communities. First of all, people need to explain to me, what do you mean when you say uplift communities? Because I keep hearing this term go around. Let's uplift communities. How? What is your plan? Because sometimes uplift communities transfers into gentrification. Sometimes uplifting communities is we're going to build these new condos in the community and this is going to be so great for all of you. Your neighborhood is going to be so much better. And then you're kicked out of the neighborhood because the prices on all of this new infrastructure that they built is so expensive that you can't afford it. And that's for somebody else. That's not for the people who are living there. That's for the people who come in there. So what does he mean by uplifting communities? What does Wes Moore mean when he says this? He doesn't have to break down details.
There was something that they did in the DC area about that commercial zones or something like that. And in the vast majority of people who got those different, I want to call it grants. Let's just call it grants for lack of a better term. From this uplifting zone, it was vastly, white people, right? Versus the DC residents who lived there. So I lived in Jersey during the Cory Booker years of becoming mayor of Newark and going onto the Senate. He's a whole boule BSer. It's sad we politicians play identity politics for career mobility. Yeah, listen, I'm in Connecticut. I knew that about Cory when he was the mayor of Newark. I knew that. I mean, you could just tell. You look at this dude, like, dude, what are you talking about? Yeah. So once he used the term "people of color," I was too done. Yeah, anybody who uses that term. Just done.
No, we're not gonna focus on reparations. Let's talk about just getting you into entrepreneurship. Okay, how are you gonna do entrepreneurship with no healthcare? Tell me. You know the number of businesses that people start that fail, especially in the restaurant industry. You know how many restaurants fail every year? Do you have something to go back to?
To me, there should be no black restaurants that fail. I'm sorry, these black restaurants that fail. It's there's enough black folks that go out to eat every day, and I should all be supporting black businesses. There's a vegan spot that's a few miles from me. It's actually in a couple of different cities, like a half an hour drive. I try to go there every at least once a week. I try to. These black restaurants that fail, and because we're all going to McDonald's restaurant, all these other places, crazy.
Let Phil finish here.
This is why the grassroots has a lot of vitriol to all you educated folk in the Democrat Party, because you care about just getting whatever little crumbs that you're going to get, and you say to hell with the rest of the 43 million FBAs that can really use that kind of help. The FBAs in Maryland that can really use that kind of help.
He's just focusing on himself. Wes Moore, and this is the thing, it's not just Wes Moore, it's also the Black Boule as well. This is another thing we talked about. It's all about, like, what can I do for me? What can I do to enrich myself? What can I do to further my career, to further my political career? Pulling up the ladder from behind you, not leaving the ladder there so that other people in the community can also walk up the ladder and get to where you are. That's selfishness. That's not community. That's selfish. And there's a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people talking about this Wes Moore issue, right? And I'm just tired. There are people defending and saying, oh, well, you guys said you don't want to study, so what are you complaining about? We're complaining about the fact that he didn't offer the details of moving forward, that he didn't offer, okay, this is how we need to move forward. Yes, you guys need cash reparations, and this is how we need to do it. He didn't offer that. The point is he don't want to do it, period. And what kills me is when I hear people who are part of the Black Boule who are falling for this, and they're sitting up there and they're telling people, well, guys, he said he's going to uplift communities. That means gentrification.
And where are to your point, there are only successful businesses or salons, barbershops, funeral homes, churches, maybe a few hair care companies. And here's a big thing about barbershops and salons. Do they own the buildings, right? Do we have a lot of real estate investors? We got to own things collectively, right? Even if it's a couple of barbershop and a salon, owning in a building, you gotta own it. Try to own the building, right? And then people to fix up the building, our own HVAC companies, our own restoration companies. There was a sister I had who did a business plan for me, and of course I wanted a sister to do it, and she was telling me how her and her husband were they were going to redo their kitchen. Couldn't find, and they were in the DMV area, in the DC Maryland area, lived there. Couldn't find any black company to do their to redo their company, to redo their kitchen in the whole DC area. I mean, I don't know, they were booked up or whatever, but that's what she said. She's like, I couldn't find anybody to do it, so she hired a Hispanic or Mexican or whatever company to do it. Crazy. His handlers told him to end the talk of reparations. They all tell him that. Yeah, it's the real estate, right? Yeah, that's what it is. That's fine to own those things, but we got to start owning the buildings. Co-ops. We all got to buy it, build it, fix it up, have the ability to rent it out, maintain it, buy our own banks, our own an alternative to Uber. We got to think along these lines. IT companies go in there, set up your fiber optics and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff, maintain it. Got to start thinking bigger.
When the communities improve, you won't be allowed to stay there. But Wes will.
Everybody get money. The immigrants was coming in here underneath Joe Biden. What were they getting? Money. They weren't getting studies. They weren't getting hopes and prayers. They were getting money. Free hotel, free food, free EBT, free everything.
This is what I'm saying. They got the money. To the first couple of questions we were asking about, they got the money. Joe Biden, they got the money. Gave these people, yes, hotels, hotel stays, $2,000 checks every month. Don't believe that they have the money. They just don't want to give it to us. and we're getting the hopes and prayers. Uplift the community. Crazy. Do we get angry at the politician or system that put us there? He's an easy target. I think it's the system. A lot of this, I think, is we got to demand again. I think one of the biggest starts that we have to do is to think collectively, all Black folk. And this is the anger that Phil Scott is talking about here. Is this you get here from other places, you get here from the Bahamas, you get here from Costa Rica, you get here from Panama, you get here from Jamaica, you get here from Haiti, and you look down upon us and you want to step over us, and you don't think that we value education or whatever else they think about us, right? They get here, then they get into these positions and they reach back to their home bases while forgetting about the FBA people. And that's why FBA people don't like these other people, right? So we got to figure this out, that it's all the game that we're all involved in. We got to figure that out, and then, yes, we have to do what other people are doing as far as reaching back, no matter what the color of your skin is. Crazy.
Money, something to spend. Black folks can't even get that.
That part right there. When we ask for a debt that is owed, let's study it. Or, well, we don't need to study. We already got to study. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. I'm calling it right now, guys. Keep your eye on this guy. Beware of this. Keep your eye on Wes Moore. I really do believe this is the future Barack Obama. I really, really do.
And they don't care. And they don't care because our votes don't matter, because we won't vote collectively, or because we got one or two sellouts within us. As I mentioned, Phil Scott Sabby Sabs and Phil Scott just said it. I agree with that. We just sell each other out. We just get the butter biscuits. We get our collective good, and we don't look to be collective in our thinking. And again, I think that this is something that was bred to us, and not only American slavery, but the colonies, right? The Bahamas, Jamaica, Haiti, they were all doing the same thing. So we were taught and told and bred. And that's why I think it's in our DNA not to trust each other, not to help each other, to look at these other people and help them first and sell them out in order to advance. That's why I think. I absolutely think that. Yes, there are several 100,000 positions vacant for electricians and plumbers. I said it today. I was driving around, going to my favorite spot. They're doing some concrete work. They're not even speaking English. I mean, they're not just, and they're from Eastern European. I don't know what they were, Albanian or Czech. I don't know what they were, but they weren't speaking German. They weren't speaking French. So, and this is the politicians, talk about the system. This is the politicians that gutted our school system, talk about HVAC and all this kind of stuff. These are the ones who gutted our system, the politicians. Used to be able to get trades in high school. Can't get that anymore. Although I understand some people are trying to get that back. Or some school systems are incorporating that back.
Already pumping him up. I remember when I saw Barack Obama on, I think that was Oprah, before he ran for president. You see, the fix is already in. When I say the system is fixed, this isn't happening because the system is broken. This is happening because the system is fixed. We need to break it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't like when people say, people used to ask me, as a police officer, you think the system's broken? No, it's doing exactly, it's working right on, right? It's working the way it's supposed to be. It's working the way it's supposed to be. This is the way that it is. This stuff is designed. This stuff is designed. When they gave the corporations the political power to make votes and create super PACs and took the school stuff out of the schools and infused it with woke garbage. This is where we're at. We don't have the people to do it. We're fighting with each other. Gentrification, fighting with each other.
The system needs to be broken. Otherwise, you continue to get more Wes Moores, more Barack Obamas, and the communities will continue to crumble, or they'll be rebuilt without you. Hey guys, this was a savvy clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.
All right, that was it. That's it. So I appreciate y'all coming up. I was going to watch the video, so I said I might as well review it. So the video that I played with myself and Dr. Hassman, I'm going to put that into the members only. So if you can go watch it, or if you want to listen to it, it'll be up on my I actually just reactivated the audio podcast. So wherever you listen to audio podcasts, you should be able to go and search for Dr. L's podcast, and all the audio should be up there if you want to listen to the full interview with myself and Dr. Rhoda Hassman, who is of Jewish descent. However, she is very much in favor of African people from the diaspora and from the continent being reciprocated or being repaired financially. So go check that out. She is the problem, but she lives on a democratic plantation, giving away votes in exchange for nothing but the benefits of the community. Who do you mean she? Sabs? I don't know. Sabby Sabs? Is that what you mean? Why y'all join as soon as I'm about to leave now? So hit the like button. Go back and watch the entirety of the video. I did put up a couple of books. Here's another one. This is the book that I was talking about from Dr. Rhoda Howard Hassman, Reparations to Africa. I got that on Barnes & Noble, but you can go check it out wherever you want to look at books or whatever. And I've also put up some other books by Randall Robinson and William Darity. Let me put them up on here again. William Darity. I'm just going to put the books up here, so if you guys want to look into this a little bit more here. So this is a book from Here to Equality: Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. I'm pretty sure that this was on Kindle. If you guys do that, I do Kindle. I don't like hard physical books, but that's up to you. Here's another book you guys can read by Randall Robinson. The Debt, What America Owes to Blacks. I actually really, really enjoyed that one. And the final book that you guys can read is, I think it was the last book. Oh, wait, no, this one. The Case for Black Reparations by Boris Bitker, which I understand. I haven't read it. It is in my Kindle. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I understand he makes the same argument for reparations, that it is a better argument for reparations should be made from the mental Holocaust that we suffered from Jim Crow. And I think a better case can be made for that. I absolutely believe a better case can be made for that versus the case that we are owed it because of the work that our ancestors did in slavery. I don't think we're ever going to get it for that. But I think we can make a case for the mental, emotional, psychological damage, as well as when you gave all these different incentives to other groups and didn't give them to us, i.e. the GI Bill, blockbusting, mass incarceration, all this different stuff that happened to us. I think a better case can be made for that. So let's just see. Black women in general. Okay. They sold out the community in power and feminism. Yes. I got you about that, brother. I got you about that A Peaceful Life. I understand that the people, the problem is that we have been engaged in an atmosphere of always of us selling each other out, and that's exactly my problem. Whether it's, you want to say it's the women who sold us out, who took quote unquote the deal, uh, the government deal that was given to them, whether it was one of us, black people not standing together, whether it's black people who got here from other places who didn't stand with us. The problem is we haven't seen each other as true brothers and sisters and really try to fight for the collective good of all persons of African descent, of all persons of African descent. I don't care if you're male, female. I don't care if you're gay, straight. I don't care what you are. The only thing I care about is that we are African first. We ought to be African first, and therefore we ought to stand with each other. So we got to fight against gentrification. We got to support each other's businesses. I don't care if you're a Bohemian and there's a Jamaican restaurant down the street. I don't care if you're FBA and you're you own your FBA, you own a soul food restaurant, and there's some Jamaicans moving to your spot. They ought to be going to your restaurant, and you ought to be going to theirs, right? That's the way I think, and we got to build. We can't get any. We will never get any political clout to High Vibes' previous point. We will never get into any political block, any political power until we develop the financial power, right? If you haven't listened, never listened to Malcolm X's Ballot and the Bullet, which I'm sure you guys all have listened to. If you never listened to that, go listen to the Ballot and the Bullet. It'll be the ballot or it'll be the bullet, right? That's one of the greatest messages of all time, in my opinion. We got to develop the political power. We have to develop that. That gang up on ice cream was led by the ladies of BLM. They are loyal to white liberal women, not black men. The peaceful birds with feather flock together. We're suffering PTSD, and men and women. Yeah, PTSD, Stockholm syndrome. That's what I'm saying. African American people. That would be a better avenue, path to getting reparations, in my opinion. PTSD, Stockholm syndrome, right? Probably some other psychological stuff that isn't coming up to my mind, right? Our collective, when I mean, all darker skinned people are bleaching their skin and doing all this other stuff, but it's on steroids with African American people, bleaching skin, the hair, the lightening of the eyes, all this other stuff. That's where it all comes from. We want to be like them. We don't want to be black, right? I think we're owed reparation for that. I really do. We can register independence and ban on all platforms. Well, I agree with that. I definitely think we got to get off these plantations. We got to make them earn our vote, and we don't have that power. If they can just, the reason that Wes Moore didn't mind doing that is because he'll get the votes from someplace else. The African American vote don't count. That's the problem, and we have to make it count. All African people should vote the same way. I don't care if you moved here from the Dominican. I don't care if you moved here from you were living in China. I don't care if you moved here from Britain and then you got your citizenship. You were born here. You came here. I don't care where you I don't care where your head is at with that. Forget, I have friends who only vote along religious grounds. Oh, I don't like abortion. That's why I'm gonna vote this way. I try to convince them all the time. The most important thing is our ability to live and to move and to operate in this world. And when you get passed over for a promotion, and you get passed over for whatever financial thing that you got going on, you can't get a loan. You're trying to spruce up your house. You can't get a homeowner loan. You can't get a loan in a certain place. Where we know that there's been studies about job applications and names on job applications. We know that there's been other information about people who have tried to buy a home and they can't get the loan or mortgage, or they try to sell a home and they got to take all the pictures down because they don't want to make it seem too black. The number one thing that is holding us all back is this mark that we have. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but we got to collectively think along these lines. So this, I'm going to vote for this person. I'm going to vote for that person because of other things other than our collective financial interest. I don't care about baby deletion. Not that I don't care about it, but that's not even tertiary on my mindset. My number one thing is what is going to happen to the existence and the progress of African people, because I think about my kids. I want them to have the best life that they can have. That's the way I think. That's the way I think. And obviously everybody don't think like that, right? Obviously everybody don't think like that, but that's just my opinion. So yeah. That was the basis for Jews receiving their ongoing reparation payments for the Holocaust. Collectively thinking, and Jews will tell you that one of their big philosophies is never again. It's never going to happen again. But you look at the African people, right? You know, we got this situation going on with Ibrahim Traore. We got this other, you know, what look at what happened to Haiti, right? The pillaging of that country from its freedom in the 1840s or whatever they got free to the 1940s, over something like $40 billion. They could have been investing in themselves, building roads, building education, right? I don't understand how people cannot look at these types of things and think collectively and understand that this was a Western phenomenon that happened to Haiti. The United States didn't recognize the only reason the United States didn't recognize it as a country and invaded it like 8 times, put Marines there 8 times because they wanted to control it. It's because of race. Because of race. So I don't understand. I don't understand that. So some of us don't want to be black so bad. We don't want to be African so bad. Dominican people who get here they don't want to be black. So no, I know African. There's no African blood in me. Okay, brother. I don't know of any African Americans bleaching the skin as much, but I do know about the long hairs. Yeah, I mean it's a thing. I had a lady on when I did my other podcast. She's African Americans. I don't know. You're probably right, African Americans, but there was a lady who I had on who was Ethiopian. He was Ethiopian or Eritrean, one of those two. I think Ethiopian, of Ethiopian descent. She's now living in Minnesota, where there's a vast majority of Ethiopian people. And there was a big problem within her community. She was a master of public health, working for the government, and I think in the city of Minneapolis, where George Floyd situation happened. And I had her on my podcast to talk about the skin bleaching thing. It's on my audio podcast. It's still there. And so she was talking about that, the skin bleaching epidemic that was going on amongst them. And I asked her, you know, do you see yourself as a black woman? I asked her that, and she said, and I think finally, after hemming and hawing, she finally said, yeah, I see myself as a black woman. So this is what I'm saying. These people don't even see themselves as one of us. So it's crazy. Same thing for this going on between men and women. Exactly. Women, why aren't men approaching? We aren't supposed to forget the last 2-3 decades of women yelling, leave us alone. Yeah. Second move for power, black women must abandon white women's feminism and apologize for selling out the black men. Black men didn't oppress them, stay in the white folks' business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good luck with that one, peaceful life. Good luck with that one, man. The skin is a good giveaway, brother. Yeah, I mean, but they got to identify themselves with that. I got to identify with themselves with that. Black women need to stop fighting for stupid rights like abortion. Those conservatives don't care if you delete your babies. They don't care. Exactly. I mean, I think, was it something I was listening to? Was it yesterday? I get all this stuff mixed up, but somebody was talking about that, you know, talking about all the deaths that go on with African American people, which is obviously, you know, us killing ourselves is vastly too much. But then we're talking about, you know, the biggest thing is baby deletions. I'm like, come on, man. And I'm not saying it's not a problem, but I'm saying, listen, I mean, that should not be our focus. Should be fixing our families. Our focus should be fixing our financial status, our educational attainment status. We mentioned trades. We got to get all these different things right. It's not enough for us just to own. It's not enough for us just to own hair salons, barbershops, funeral homes, etc. We got to start owning these tech companies. We got to start. We got to start owning HVAC companies, restoration companies. You know, we got to own all of these types of things, right? Those are the things that matter. So we gotta figure that out. We gotta figure that out. And you know, our own education system. You know, we gotta get our own education system. You know, I'm just not down with what we've got going on so far. It's a pride thing. Don't tell me what to do. Me, woman, hear me roar. We'll put a sock in it. They think society values them as the same as white women. It's delusional. Reproductive rights are serious. Do y'all hear about the story of the black woman nurse who is on life support right now because Listen, I'm not saying it's not a big deal. I don't want to trivialize any of this stuff. And I understand that Black women have the highest mortality rate when it comes to giving birth, and then dying because of that. It's certainly an issue and certainly needs to be dealt with. Absolutely. But the number one thing, I'm just saying in order of preference, in my estimation, is that we got to get our financial house in order. And the way that we do that, the way that we get our financial house in order, is to partner up and make sure that we are building strong communities and make sure that our votes count. So if our votes counted in any type of way, we could push back against any of these things, including the reproductive rights, and make sure that this sister right here and any other future sisters and any other person of any race doesn't have to go through this, So, but also, this is going to sound unpopular, but we got to take a look at, why are you doing this stuff, right? Maybe if we're making better decisions and all, and I don't know her situation, but everybody who's getting a baby deletion isn't doing it because of medical issues. They're doing it because of just a form of birth control. But that's a whole nother argument. Can you imagine ancient family patriarchs being told what to do by these women? We can deliver our own babies. This is not 1945. Yeah. All right, y'all. I just want to do that. So thanks for checking out the video. I appreciate it. Let me hit the like button if you want to buy me some lunch. It's at the bottom of the screen. I really appreciate y'all showing up and all that. So hit the like button. I would really, really appreciate it. Hit the like button. And let me know if you guys, I want to do more, stuff like this, but you guys got to come in and watch. I do plan to do a show a little bit later tonight. And maybe it'll be a little more light, but I wanted to get that in before the weekend. Her situation, or maybe I'll do it Sunday. Maybe I'll do the show Sunday. Yeah, maybe I'll do it Sunday. We'll see. If I do a show tonight, I will. I'll let you know. Her situation was medical oversight during her pregnancy, and she could not be saved, but the law says save the baby by any means. Yeah. I'm listen, man, that whole thing is so complicated and it's so crazy to me. Yeah, we ought to be able to medical oversight. God, again, this is why we need healthcare. That stuff shouldn't be happening in the United States. It shouldn't be happening in the United States. It's crazy to me. It's crazy. I remember when I had my triple bypass, and I looked at the hospital bill. Now I had to pay because I had really, really good insurance from the city. I'm like, if I was just a regular Joe Schmo, some dock worker, somebody worked at Walmart, I'd be dead. Couldn't pay this, listen, it was well over $160,000. Like, who's got money for this? Crazy. Yeah. All right, y'all. This is great content. We know it's coming from a genuine source. Yeah, listen. Yeah. I appreciate that, Miles. I really do. Crazy for a nurse to be not listened to. She went for treatment. They sent her home. Listen, that happens all the time. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. I read a story of a doctor who walked into him. I don't know how true this is. This is something I read. Walked into a medical office, walked into an emergency room, told him, this is a cardiologist, heart doctor, walked into a medical facility, emergency room, told him, I'm having a heart attack. And he named off whatever he thought it was, interior and lateral descending vein or article or whatever. And he's like, if you don't get me on the table within the next 5 minutes, I'm going to die. And they didn't listen to him, he died. So I don't mean to laugh at that, but they don't care. They don't care. We live in a society that just don't care. The black man versus black woman argument can go on forever, but have more important issues. Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for checking out the video. Hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. And again, if you want to see more content like this, you can send it to me. I do want to do that. I enjoy the independent media and things that I don't know about. I'd certainly be willing to watch, talk about. I'm very much interested in what's going on in other things besides black men and black women relationships. It might not seem like it, but I really do try to read a range of different things. So, all right, y'all. Take care of yourselves. Much love and peace. Talk to y'all.